Hi everybody, it's Thursday night. Welcome to our Thursday night mini class. What are we doing tonight? Tonight we're going to be learning how to do in the hoop embroidery machine Trapunto to do this little tree. It's easy to do and it has really spectacular results. Now, I have this in two sizes. This one here is for the 5x7 frame. I have another design which is identical to it to handle the larger frames. I believe it's 9 inches by 12 inches. This one here is a combination of embroidery as well as I sewed the borders on the traditional quilting way by piecing. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's get started. Here's the things that you need. You're going to need, first of all, a fabric that is sort of thin. The top fabric is going to be kind of thin because you want to be able to see through it. And this, I'm just going to be doing the 5x7 frame there. I do have it larger. You can have it in both sizes if you like. Just send me an email at waltzquilt@yahoo.com and I'll be happy to send this to you. Okay, so like I said, you're going to need this very thin, translucent white or light colored, or even a light solid color fabric. You want to be able to see through it. See how you can see that pattern behind it? So this I'm going to use as my background fabric, but I want this to still be seen through it. And because we're doing a tree, I'm going to be using a square of this green, this in-your-face, super bright green. And again, you'll be able to see the tree through it. It's going to be a slight green. The brighter the green, the better. Okay, you're also going to need some batting. I'm using an extra loft polyester by Fairfield. And I don't normally quilt with polyester because it's slippery, but I want it extra thick. And this is the extra loft. And when you put it together, it's a little less than an inch thick. And it's going to squash down. So that's what I like. So I'm going to be using 2 layers of this, big enough to fit the tree. I'm going to be using a no-show mesh stabilizer. And of course my 5x7 hoop. And then I've also picked, I have a piece of regular batting for the backing, and then this is my back of my quilt. I'm going to be using that later. So first of all, I'm going to hoop my stabilizer with this background fabric. So put it in the center and hoop it nice and tightly and as straight as possible. And tighten it really good. Okay, and now we're ready to go to the machine. Okay, I've loaded the 5x7 design into the machine. So I'm going to hit set and embroidery. It has 4 color stops. The first one is going to tack down. It's just the outline of the trapunto. So I've loaded the background fabric and my stabilizer to the hoop. I'm going to have a piece a little bigger than what I need, because that way I don't have to run a placement stitch. I know that's going to fit. Now, when I lower this presser foot, see how much that digs down? I'm going to need to change the height of the presser foot. So I'm going to come to my settings page. The settings page is up here, right up here where you can see, there it is. So I'm going to go to the embroidery section where it says here, embroidery foot height. I'm going to raise that up just for now, okay? Well, that's about as tall as it will go. And then I'm going to come over here and lower that presser foot. I'll hit OK, lower the presser foot. And that is much better, okay? It's still pushing down, but it's okay. Now, if you feel it's going to be too high, take away one of the layers. You don't have to have both layers. I like it nice and thick. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stitch the first color stop. There we go. I'm just going to hold this. And I'm using regular thread in my needle and in my bobbin. Okay, see how that's smooshed down quite a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take the fabric take the hoop off of the machine, but I'm not going to take the fabric out of the hoop, because now I'm going to carefully cut, and I do them separately. I'm going to cut the green fabric as close as I can get to the stitching, but you want to leave, you don't want to go super close. Maybe you want to get it at least within about 1/8 of an inch. Don't cut your stitching. Okay, and this is best done on a flat surface, and you want to take your time. See how you get it nice and close? Then after that, you're going to come and you're going to take the batting out. This is where it helps to have a pair of blunt nose scissors so that you don't dig through and cut all the way through. So you're just going to cut. Oop, I only got one layer. I want both. It helps to hold it up. See, I'm getting it fairly close. But I'm going to do this at the table. It's just a lot easier. First of all, I'm going to just cut the green away just so that I can see what I'm doing. I don't have to get every little crevice. That's just fine. That's why it's nice to have the blunt nose. I'm going to cut this off camera because you don't want to rush this. So I'm just going to take my time and cut out the green outline, and I will be right back. Okay, I've cut all the green away for the tree, and now I'm going to cut probably one layer at a time of this thick batting. I want this nice and lofty. That's why I've picked the 2 layers. This is opposite than traditional trapunto that you do with a free motion machine or with hand quilting. Normally, trapunto is done where you're stuffing the backing, you're stuffing your item through the back of it. Traditionally, they would finish the quilt, then you would cut slits in the back of the quilt, and then put in with like usually forceps or something, stuffing in the batting underneath the back, and then you'd have to sew up the back. Modern day, what you do is you work opposite, and what you would do with today's faux, it's still considered faux trapunto, is that you would, like this one, here's what would happen with, this is traditionally done trapunto. You would trace your design onto your front fabric. In other words, that gauzy piece that I used, like the white, this one here, you would trace it on there. Then you would take I put in colors, fabric, and then the dense stabilizer underneath. And then you would stitch along the outline just inside the lines of your pattern. Then you would come back and cut this away, just like here. And then you would put this on top of your quilt like this. And then you use your regular thread to stitch it down. And then you'd be finished. I have other videos, and I'll put the links in the description below on how to do traditional free motion trapunto. I'll put that in the bottom. But we're going to do this by machine. So we're doing this with the embroidery way. And take your time again. If you don't get every little bit of it, that's fine. You don't have to get it as close. You want to get it within like 1/8 of an inch of the outline stitching, because this is all going to be sewn down again. So I'm cutting both layers at one time. Now, if this background were a little darker, I'd probably be a little more careful to get it closer, but it's white, so you're not really going to see. And also, I want it good and tacked down. Again, take your time, don't rush this. Let's go back to the machine, because now what I'm going to do is put this on the top, float it on the top. Just float it, which means just set it on the top. Hold it down. You can spray it if you like, so that it'll stay still. It's up to you. You don't have to spray it if you don't want to. And I'm going to put green into my needle so that it will show the stitching. Now from here on in, it's going to show the stitching. Okay, I've sprayed this down, and now I've put my topping piece, which is that see-through fabric. And now I put green thread into the needle, because now we're going to stitch the outline. This is permanent now, so I'll go ahead and stitch this down. Whoops. See, now we don't need that so high. See how that was sticking up a little bit too much? So I'm going to go back to my settings page. I'm going to raise that needle up, go to my settings page, and I'm going to return this embroidery foot height, maybe not to normal, but I put it 1/10 of an inch. It's a little higher, so because now this trapunto is sort of smashed down. So now let's go ahead and stitch it. If you see it starting to drag, I need to move that a little bit. Raise that presser foot. I'm going to move that height up just a tad more to about 2/10 of an inch. Yeah, that's a little better. No, that's actually just about right. You want that foot to just be hovering the top. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to return that embroidery foot height to its default, because we're going to be stitching the background. You'll know you have the default because a black box goes around it. Okay, and then I'm going to change this thread to white. Now we're going to start the quilting process. See, now here's my front here. So I've turned this over on the back, and I've centered the backing and the batting to the back of the quilt, and I've just sprayed it down just a little bit with some 505 spray, or you could use KK2000, or you could pin it in either way. I've also pinned this up. I've sort of rolled it up so that it is right at the edge of the hoop. This is a technique you probably do not want to do if it's a large quilt. This is for something small. So this is going to fit. I want to clear this little bracket so that it fits into the machine. Okay. That's fine. That's completely clearing. It's outside of the hoop. Those pins are not going to bother anything. Okay, and I'm putting white thread in my needle. Now I'm going to start doing the background. It's going to do an echo and to seal the outside edges in white, and then it's going to stipple around it. I'm using just classical stippling, and this is micro stippling. It's very small, and this will take quite a while to stitch because there's a lot of stitching here. You want to use a thinner thread. I'm using just plain white embroidery thread, but if you really want it to be sort of invisible, and the reason that we are doing micro stippling here is because I want to stitch this down. The flatter this is, the more you will see the raised trapunto. So it helps to use a really fine thread. You could even use white bobbin thread in your needle if you're choosing white, or if you're using a color, then you want to maybe go to bottom line, which is a 60 weight thread, or even a 100 weight thread. Superior's got a decent one. The thinner the thread, the more you notice the pattern, or the less you notice the stitches. I'm using a thin because I want to still be able to see this background. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start stitching it with this very thin. And the first thing it does is an outline, and this is going to seal in the edges of the trapunto. It's just going to echo outside of the design. Okay, and then this last one is just going to be stippling, and here we go. Sort of keep an eye on it because you don't want any folds or anything to show up. Okay, this is going to be like watching grass grow, so I'm going to go ahead and finish stitching this off camera. There, it is all finished stitching and we're done with this. So I'm going to remove this from the hoop. Look how nice. Let's scoot this back some. Look how nice and flat that background is, and you can still see the background fabric through, although you don't have to. You can make this just plain white. And now it's ready to put the border on, so actually all I really have to do is put the border strips on. Okay, let's go to the sewing machine and put the border strips on. Okay, so what I have done is I'm just going to leave this. I've got the backing and the batting wider than what I need. Here is the edge of my stitching so that you could see it. I simply drew a line with my friction marker, 1/4 inch outside of the stitching. So you can see the line of stitching. Just so that it's easier to see, I've made a mark 1/4 inch outside. I've put my sewing machine with white thread. I've cut 2 1/4 inch strips for the borders. Okay, so now I'm just going to simply line this up here so that it sticks out about a little over on each edge. And you can use the walking foot if you like. And I'm simply stitching a 1/4 inch seam. If it tends to bubble on you, you can glue baste it down if you like. I'm not going to, but you can. If I don't have the walking foot on and it's wanting to grow a little bit, so here's how you counteract it. Helps to have a stylus of some sort. Here's the other edge. I will put this here, line it up, go a little further. There we go. I have my 1/4 inch foot on, and as I start to stitch, I can take a stylus and just hold it down in front of it as it passes. Hold down the stylus right in front of the foot until that little piece passes in front of it. In case you're wondering where I got this tool, this is actually from Martelli, and you can order these online. Or any stylus, even a seam ripper will work. Like you can take your seam ripper and just hold it. Just help push it, and you're sort of just holding it down, anchoring it against the backing fabric. I'm going to press these open. I'm just going to finger press them for now. And now I have the other piece. Okay, so you can finger press them or just press them really good. Then again, I have my line here. I'm just going to line that up, start at the end. And just following that 1/4 inch edge. A bit extra here. All right, press these open. Okay, before I really square it up, so with about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, I'm just going to take a little bit longer stitch, and I'm just going to baste down these edges. There, all done. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and bind it. And I'm just going to square it up and bind it in the normal way. If you need information on how to bind a quilt, I will put a link below on how to bind a quilt. And I'll probably use the rest of this in here for a little hanging sleeve. I have a little bit of shifting that happened. I should have sprayed that down before I started stitching it, but you know something? That's going to be covered by the hanging sleeve, so I'm not going to worry about it, and it'll press in. Okay, I could, if I wanted to, put more quilting into the border, but I don't really. I think it's just fine as it is. In case you've never made a hanging sleeve before, so I want to first attach the hanging sleeve. So I've just got this, I've squared up my quilt. So that's as wide as it's going to be. I'm going to cut a piece the same width as the top from side to side. I'm going to take and press a double seam on either side, 1/4 inch. I'll press it and then sew it. Fold the double seam and sew this. Okay, I'm going to press the edges together. Okay. I may even glue base this together a little bit just to keep it from shifting. That's, and then before I sew it on, I'm going to fold this up like this, about a little less than, about a 1/2 inch, and just press that. I just want a crease. Now I'm going to put this on the back. Before I put the binding on, I'm just going to glue base this down. I love Elmer's glue. And I'm using Elmer's washable school glue. Put the raw edges, center this. Okay, and heat set it down. Now you don't need to have pins or clips. And it will stay. Now I'm going to put my binding on. I could baste this. I might just baste it in there, just because I'm going to be handling this a lot less than less than 1/4 inch, and because it's basted down, it's not going to shift. Okay, I'm just going to leave that like that, and now I'm going to put on my binding as normal. Okay, so I will be back. Okay, here it is all finished. So the binding is on. To be honest with you, I have just simply glue basted it to the back. I'll do the hand stitching later. I'm not going to put any more quilting into this. So what I'm going to do here for the hanging sleeve, remember I had folded this like that. I'm simply going to take some pins and open this up, go back to that fold line, which is, come on, over here. And here's the fold line right there. Usually I'll just pin this down. And when I'm hand stitching the binding, I'll hand stitch this. I'll just put a couple of pins just to hold it. One more. Okay, so I'll just put another pin here. Okay, that's just holding it back. And then as I'm stitching the binding here, as I'm stitching this binding, then I will come up here and I'll stitch this corner, and then where that fold is, I'm just going to whip stitch that to here, because what that happens is it leaves an open pocket, because if you sewed this straight down here, then what would happen is when you would hang it, the front would pucker out. So this pretty much is done it's a little on the plain side, so I'm going to bling this up a little bit for Christmas. So I'm going to glue on this little rhinestone star. I think that would look cute. It's still too plain. Okay, so what I think would look really cute is to take these beads and just couch them. And I'll just do that by hand, or I could just glue it in place if I was really in a hurry. Oh, there's this end. If I couch this like that, I'll just pin it in for now. But that's going to take some handwork, so that'll take a little bit of time. But that would be something cute that would be done as I'm putting on the binding. It just gives you an idea what it's going to look like. And then you put in here. See, that really sets it off nice and really gives it a little extra cuteness. You could also take bugle beads and sew them into the seam line. But look how prominent the tree looks, even though it's only a hint of color. Now I could also come along here with my either the crayons or the Inktense markers or any kind of fabric marker and highlight this if I like, but I think I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going to go ahead and put some heat set rhinestones on here to bling it up, and then it'll be done. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at waltzquilt@yahoo.com. If you'd like a copy of this one, which will go in the 5x7 hoop, and I have a much larger one that'll go in the 9.5 by 14 inch hoop that the higher end machines come in, and I'll be happy to send you the designs. Okay, now last we left it where I told you that it was kind of plain. So I've decided it was kind of plain, and I didn't like the printed background after all. So I did a few things. I couched on by hand. I did it by hand, but you could do it by machine with a beading foot as well. The gold beads on the edges here and here. I bound it as usual, and of course I finished, so I have the little hanging sleeve so that it will hang nice and flat on the front and yet have room for the pocket rod in the back. Okay, so yes, I did that, and I still didn't like it. I didn't like the printed pattern showing behind. I looked at it and go, gee, I'd wish I'd left it plain white. The two fabrics sort of clashed. They didn't quite, it wasn't making me happy. So what I did, after I couched it on and the beads on and I didn't like it, I said, I don't like these two patterns. They kind of clash. So what I did was I got plain fabric paint, white fabric paint, and I simply took a stiff brush and sort of scumbled it on lightly to cover the print on the back. So it's still there. You just can't see it. It looked kind of mottled, and I didn't care for that. So I put a light coating of glitter glue and white iridescent glitter. I don't know if it shows up, but this is all glitter back here. Kind of looks like a Christmas card, actually. And then after that, I said, well, still need something. So I had a rhinestone star, and then I put on just heat set rhinestones here. And I really like the way this turned out. It actually looks like a Christmas card. If you would like a copy of this design, the tree, the Trapunto tree, in either the 5x7 or the larger 9x12, or both if you like, then send an email request to me at waltzquilt@yahoo.com, and I'll be happy to send these to you. So in the meantime, see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, the notification bell. Don't forget to subscribe and comment. See you later. Happy sewing. Bye.